Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same, and now it's here, or should I say, I am. Super Bowl 58 played out in the same exact manner that the 2023 Kansas City Chiefs season did, and there is only one takeaway. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. The Chiefs had their worst regular season in the Mahomes era, losing 6 games, and their QB had career lows in most passing categories. Entering the postseason, they were left for dead. They had to go on the road in the playoffs for the first time ever. Mahomes had just 9 passing yards after the first quarter of the Super Bowl, and Kansas City did not crack double-digit points or take a lead until there were just over 2 minutes remaining in the third. And yet, as has been the case throughout his entire career thus far, at every turn this season, Patrick Mahomes stepped up when it mattered most, cementing his place in history. Championships, statistics, individual accolades, clutch moments, superhuman plays, Mahomes does it all, even when the odds are stacked against him. He has had the best start to a career in NFL history, and he does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Before the 2022 season, the Chiefs traded away their 28-year-old two-time first-team All-Pro receiver Tyreek Hill, and many assumed that this was the start of a mini rebuild for the Chiefs. Instead, while throwing to a bunch of middling to below-average wide receivers, Mahomes still went out there and won league MVP. He suffered a high ankle sprain 2 drives into Kansas City's first playoff game and still led his team to a championship, winning a second Super Bowl MVP. Then, in terms of impressive overcoming the odds performances, he one-upped himself this year. Juju Smith-Schuster, their only reliable receiver in 2022, walked in free agency, and their other wideouts, sans mid-round rookie Rashee Rice, did not develop as expected. Chiefs receivers dropped a whopping 33 passes in 2023, third most in the league, with some of those such plays single-handedly changing the results of games. Kadarius Toney. The Chiefs' offensive tackles also led the league in penalties, often putting the team behind the 8 ball. Even when you think Mahomes has done everything there is to prove himself, new challenges continue to emerge and he continues to leap over them without missing a beat. Playing the first road playoff game of your career in freezing Buffalo against a red-hot Bills team that had won 6 consecutive games to end the season? No biggie. Just go out and put up a baffling EPA per play of 0.57, that's all. The run the 2023 Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl was one of, if not the most impressive runs in league history. For those unaware, DVOA is a stat that breaks down every single play and compares a team's performance to the league average based on situation in order to determine value over average. Weighted DVOA gives stronger weight to late season games to give a more accurate depiction of what teams look like at that point of the year. The Ravens were the number 1 team in the stat by a long shot. Number 2 was San Francisco, number 3 was Buffalo, number 4 was Dallas, and number 5 was Miami. So the Chiefs knocked off 4 of the top 5 teams in weighted DVOA during their Super Bowl run. Per the founder of the stat, Aaron Schatz, the Chiefs faced the hardest postseason road to a title ever based on regular season DVOA of their opponents. The Ravens' weighted DVOA at the end of the season was the second highest ever recorded since 1981, while the 49ers also ranked in the top 10. Just quite simply unheard of. Even more impressive is Mahomes' record as an underdog. The Chiefs have only been underdogs 13 times with Mahomes as their starting QB, but they have an astounding record of 11-1-1 against the spread in those games, and a perhaps even more baffling record of 10-3 straight up. Do you realize how insane that is? I'll put it another way in case it hasn't quite set in yet. Patrick Mahomes leads his team to a win 76.9% of the time in games he isn't favored to win. That's better than the winning percentage across all games by every other quarterback in NFL history with at least 100 career starts, underdog or not. In the 2 games that the Chiefs lost straight up but covered or pushed, they still scored 40 and 51 points respectively. In this year's postseason, the Bills were favored by 2.5 in the divisional round, the Ravens were favored by 4.5 in the AFC Championship, and the Niners were favored by 2 in the Super Bowl. The lesson was never learned. You do not bet against Patrick Mahomes under any circumstance. Once again, Mahomes just gets it done when it matters most. It's not just the stats and the accolades. His ascent to the greatest of all time moniker is so realistic because he combines those things with the winning and the clutch factor. Mahomes' level of play in high-stress moments outpaces the rest of the league's level of play in ordinary circumstances, let alone anything else greater. Since becoming a full-time starter, Mahomes has an EPA per play of 0.319 in the second half or overtime on snaps with a win probability of less than 50%. That is nearly double that of the next best player in such circumstances. Including the postseason, Mahomes has a career winning percentage of 54.8% in games in which his team has trailed by 10+ points. Like what? At some point, the only plausible response to the things Mahomes does is just to laugh. He is the only quarterback in NFL history to have a winning record in such contests with a minimum of 10 such games, with his record being nearly 24 percentage points better than that of Tom Brady, who sits 4th best all time. And even better is his absurd 5-2 record in the postseason when trailing by double digits. In 3 of those contests, the Chiefs wound up winning by double digits themselves. All this being said, it is now time to hold an in-depth conversation regarding what everyone else wants to discuss, where Mahomes stacks up in the greatest of all time race. Whether you agree or disagree with the notion, Tom Brady is largely seen as the greatest QB of all time thanks to his longevity, counting stats, and most importantly, championships. So we will compare just these two for this exercise. Obviously, Brady played in the NFL for over 2 decades, while Mahomes just wrapped up his 6th season starting, so a direct career comparison would not be fair, despite what some insecure fans in the Northeast would have you believe. Instead, I see it only right to compare where Mahomes is now in his career to where Brady was at the same point of his. As we all know, Mahomes just led the Chiefs to their 3rd Super Bowl title in his 6th season starting, which tied Brady's mark through the same period. The only times Mahomes has lost before the Super Bowl were both overtime losses in the conference title. Mahomes had 6 conference championship appearances, whereas Brady had a playoff-less season and a divisional round loss during his stretch. In fact, what a lot of people forget is that Brady didn't win his 4th championship until his 13th starting season when he was 37 years old. Mahomes just turned 28 this past season. Obviously, nothing in the NFL is ever guaranteed, but if you told me that Mahomes would go ringless over the next 7 seasons, I would honestly be floored. Mahomes' championship pace is already even to that of Brady's, and the only thing that will stop him from getting ahead would be an untimely injury, knock on wood. But not all championships are created the same. Mahomes has won the Super Bowl MVP award in each of his 3 titles, while Brady took home the honor twice in his first 3. However, not everybody can throw for 145 yards and score 13 offensive points and still be named the best player in the game. While Brady was a serviceable to good QB during that first run, he was not the main catalyst for the Patriots' success. Let's compare the playoff stats during this time period between Mahomes and Captain Clutch. Obviously, one must adjust for era differences, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't believe such adjustments would make up the difference between 46 total touchdowns in 18 games and 22 TDs in 14 games. Even more wild is that Brady accounted for just 13 touchdowns across the 9 total games during the Patriots' first 3 Super Bowl runs. Compare that to Mahomes, who had 12 scores in just the 3 games of his first championship run alone. Mahomes also accounted for nearly 100 more yards per game in the postseason. Of course, we have advanced stats that tell a more complete picture, but they wind up showing the same thing. From 2001 through 2006, Brady had a DYAR, or Defense Adjusted Yards Above Replacement, of 1,107 in the postseason. Mahomes had a DYAR of 1,524, and that's without even including his numbers from this past 2023 run, as they are not yet publicly available. And before you ask, the same is true in terms of DVOA, essentially the rate version of the metric. In terms of regular season stats and accolades, the disparity only gets greater. Mahomes has made the Pro Bowl in each of his 6 seasons so far, whereas Brady had half that amount through 6 seasons. While playing in an era with more prolific passers, Mahomes has been first-team All-Pro twice and second-team once, whereas Brady had just 1 appearance on the second team. Mahomes has also won 2 league MVP awards by age 28, whereas Brady did not win his first such award until age 30. To be fair to Brady's era, for stats we will compare where the two ranked among their peers rather than against one another in strict volume numbers. Like, Mahomes' 232 total touchdowns clearly eclipses Brady's total of 150, for example, so it's not really necessary to point out. Mahomes has finished in the top 5 of touchdown passes 4 times in his career, while Brady did so 3 times in 6 years. For top 5 passing yardage seasons, Mahomes has Brady beat 4-1. In terms of EPA per play, 2023 was the first season in Mahomes' career where he did not finish in the top 5, instead placing 9th. Brady, on the other hand, was only top 5 twice. In fact, Mahomes had twice as many top 2 finishes as Brady did top 5 finishes, 4-2. Mahomes is also top 5 in passer rating thrice, whereas Brady never met that mark once. Mahomes averaged nearly a full yard better per attempt than Brady during this time frame. He also nearly doubled up Brady in terms of passing DYAR during the two players' first 6 years. Have I made the point clear yet? Like, no matter what metric you pull out, it is going to look like this. Mahomes has 3 more playoff wins than Brady did through 6 years, and he has a better career winning percentage. The checkmate points that Brady fans use in his favor in arguments against other QBs simply do not hold up against Patrick Mahomes. He is a machine determined to hold that throne. He is an alien, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. Honestly, the real comparison to Mahomes at this point in his career should probably be Michael Jordan of all people. Everybody knew what they were watching with Jordan in the moment, and thus there was no delay until the end of his career in naming him the GOAT. Jordan left so many would-be legendary all-time players as footnotes in history in the 90s because he quite simply stole all of their titles. Karl Malone and John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, Clyde Drexler. Again, nothing is written in stone, but look at what Mahomes is currently doing to the Josh Allens, Joe Burrows, and Lamar Jacksons of the world. Imagine what the narrative would currently be on Josh Allen had his Bills simply not run into the juggernaut that is Mahomes 3 times in the postseason. However, Mahomes has been there, and NFL teams better strap in and load up because he is going to be there time and time again. It doesn't matter if his receivers can't catch, or if his tackles get penalized to hell, or if his team trails by double digits in the second half. The best thing you can say about Mahomes is that he will always have his team in the mix at the end of it all with a chance to win. And with those odds, with the game on the line, you're lying if you say you're taking anybody else above him. I meant that as in current players, but the statement holds up historically. Mahomes has already caught pace with Brady in terms of championships, and while Brady was mostly just along for the ride those years, Mahomes has undeniably been the engine behind the Chiefs' success as the unquestioned best player in the NFL for 6 years running, shattering records left and right. If he retired today, he'd already be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. With Patrick Mahomes becoming the greatest of all time, at this point it is not a question of if, but rather when.